Welcome to Mobile Device Programming, Lab 2. As during introduction of Lab 1, we mentioned that we shall be using the Android IDE for purposes of our labs. And the Android IDE is a platform we use for developing applications, mobile applications that run on the Android operating system. These applications are not limited to mobile phones and tablets. They're also into wearables. They're also into Android TV, and other Android devices that fall under the mobile device programming. So, but for the purposes of our lessons, we agreed we are going to be using mobile, the phone and the tablets, because that is what we have for experimenting or for testing. Well, for this lab, we shall be illustrating how we can develop a multi-activity application. The previous activity was a simplistic one. It was actually the hello world, and we did not have to do any programming. However, if you needed to add a few components into it, you could have gone ahead and added. But it only had one activity, which is now the hello world. Today, I would like us in this lab, I would like to illustrate to you how we go about now developing a multi-activity lab. And for us to do that, I'll be using an event attendance registration app. Event attendance registration app will require us to have something like a login, a login interface, and also a registration interface. So the first thing we are going to do, of course, I know you already have set up Android ID, downloaded it, installed it, but all you went through the first lab, then you're okay with that. Now, because we are going to have two activities, one for logging in and the other one for registration, we are going to assume that somebody logs in and then they register those who are attending a certain event in the app. So we can have the login, assuming that we design it first on a piece of paper. We don't have to do that really. You can imagine it in your mind and then do it, because it's just a simplistic and for illustration purposes. So it will take this form, username, password, and then sign in or register. And then once you click on sign in or register, that should lead you to the form where you're going to do the registration: name, ID number, phone number, email, and the other details can be collected. And then if you need to clear from what before you register the person, then you can click on clear and then you can re-enter the details, or you can click on register and you can have those details fed into the database. So for persistency in access. So once we design that, then now we'll need to actually implement it. I'm assuming this is my piece of paper for now, but assuming I've not done this, then I would have to go to file menu, select new project, select a suitable, of course, you see we are developing for the phone and tablet, and then I go select a suitable activity. In this case, it will be the logging activity. Then select next, and then give my application a name. Let's say I can call it event registration, and then I'll select a suitable place to save that. Eventually, of course, I set the other parameters. Of course, the language you're using is Java, API is Marshmallow as usual. And then I click on finish once I'm done. I had done that, so for my case, that's done. So I had done that, and what I got after doing that is the logging activity, as you can see. And then I got the activity login.xml. Login.activity.java is the main file for this app. And then I also have the activity login. This is the activity, this is the interface or user interface that goes together with, provides the user interface that goes together with the login activity, which is the file that runs the application. So this interface, this activity.login provides us a chance for us to edit what appears on the interface. And you have an option for code. You can split the two. When you edit the code, you can see, or you can go for design alone. So if you go for code, then you can be able to view that within it there are some controls, or if you like, there are some views or text controls, like to edit text. One is for email, as you can see, and the other one is for password. So of course, that is what you're seeing on the design end here. Email, password. Of course, you can go to where you have the button. There are quite a number of them. In fact, you can have, if you scroll down, you're going to see the others we are not seeing, like the button and the progress bar. Of course, the buttons you can see, they're supposed to be two. I don't know why we only have one. There's a button for signing or register. Oh yeah, it's one button because it's signing or register. And then of course we have the progress bar, which of course also is not visible at this point in time. So you can be able to appreciate that already the design the design is done for the login for the logging interface or the logging activity. So the other file that you get to see is the Android manifest file. Of course, this Android manifest file, you can see it provides for the logging activity at this point. And this logging activity, of course, is actually the main activity, and is the activity which runs when the app is launched. In other words, when you start the app, when it's in production. Of course, the other activity is the registration activity, which now comes in when, and of course, you have the string file. The string file has the name of the event of the app, which is event registration, which of course is displayed when app runs. So if we run this now, of course, it will display this interface, the first interface, and that is if we run this now, it will display only this interface if we have not added the other. But we need to. We also need the registration form. So the registration form is a new activity. When you go to file this time, we don't create a new project because we already have the project. We will add the activity. And in adding the activity, we are not going to add the logging activity because that's not what we need. We are going to add an empty activity so that from that empty activity, we can now design on top of it the registration form. You can call it, for instance, form registration. And then once you do that, you're going to see that it is going to be mapped. Excuse me. Then, of course, these are specifications we have to make. Much of it we won't change because already is mapped to the other activity. So we click on finish. I done that already. That's why we click on cancel. And once we have clicked on finish, of course, it will be built. And once built, Grando, of course, we configure we do the necessary configuration. We will now have what we call the form registration.java. And on the and on the user interface side, we are going to have activity form activity for form registration .xml, which now will have this. Will have a plain. Will have a plain activity, an empty activity. So what do you do with this empty activity? You need to add controls. But when you add control, these controls need to be organized. You can't have one control here, another one down here, another one at this corner. You need to organize them so that they appear in a specific layout. For us to do that, the first thing we need to do to these controls is to the now empty application. Forget it's because I had done this before, that's why you're seeing these ones. Otherwise, they're not there. The first thing to do is to specify the layout. And I would like us to start by using the constraint layout. Is the best layout so far. So you drag and drop. Once you see this pink border, whatever color is going to be on your IDE, then you release the button. You release the button or release the control, and it's going to implement the constraint layout. The constraint layout allows us to specify a layout for each and every component or control that is within the activity. Once you're done with that, then we need to insert of course the other controls like the text views and the buttons. So we select text and of course use plain text, drag and drop if we want to get like the one I have here, or alternatively you can use the password, whichever one you want. Now I drag and drop them here: name, ID number, the two buttons. Of course, now you select buttons here, and then you select the button you want. In this case, I just select plain button and drag and drop it here. This is a drag and drop interface. So you just drag and drop. Once you drag and drop, then you start editing the issues to do with the layout. So you click on it, and then you specify the layout. Like you can see, this one I specified. I started from here. So I started by specifying this one, for instance, and you highlight it. Once you highlight it, and you can see that it has this. Let's see one that I can right click just for illustration purposes. If I right click and I can clear this constraint just to demonstrate how we do constraint. Once I highlight on it and you can see it changes slightly, then I can drag and have that constraint there. So that means now I've constrained it to this boundary. And then I can also constrain it to this other one, so that now its position becomes that. And then I constrain it to this, and then eventually constrain it to this other one here. Okay, probably the other one is also constrained to this one, so we can't do it that way. And then we allied it. I had allied it to, you can still move it. I can now move it to here. That's okay. So now that's the way you do the constraint. I've done that for all my controls, and therefore you can do the same for your controls. And you can, of course, you can add this. I'm doing this for demonstration. You can have name, ID number, phone number, email, and you use the relevant text because with that, some of them have built-in support for validation. Once we are done with that, now we have the first interface, which is the login, and you have the second interface, which is the activity, which is the form, which is the registration form. We need to connect the two. How do we go about connecting these two? That's a question. Take note, however, because you have added this form registration, have we added all the component files again? Note, adding adding the registration activity here has added what? Has added registration from registration to Java. It has added activity from registration, but the activity, and of course, but the added manifest file has remained the same, and the strings file has remained the same. So the only new files we have is the registration.java and the form registration, which is for the interface. And of course, the reason for that is the Android manifest file is common file for all the activities that you're going to have. And in fact, you can see it defines the intent filters within which we have interactivity communication between activities within the app. And like in this case, you can see there are already two activities defined here. One for the form registration class and the other one for the login activity class. Then from there, we have, of course, that's the purpose of the manifest file, to connect between the your app to the operating system, that is the Android OS. The strings file also, this time around, does not just define the event registration, the name of the app. It does provide a name for the other controls or views that we have added to the interfaces. And that's why we only have those two. They are shared between, but the others are independent, as you can see. Once you have done that, then I think you are ready now, because you have done the design, to test the application. But before that, we need to connect. We connect it so that at what point are we going to connect this? If you go to activity login, when we click sign in or register, it's supposed to validate the email, the password, and then of course, it's supposed to allow you now to get to the registration form. So we are going to attach that to an event here, which is the click event. So we have a click listener. We look for the click listener in the login.java, and within the click listener, see the event listeners. We scroll down, see whether you're going to get it. Here we are. Login.button.set on click listener. Public void on click. Of course, I'm relying, this is the reason why you had done Java before, so some of these things you do understand. So, of course, this is for loading the progress bar. We can disable it or we can just leave it at that. Then we put this if statement. I think you can have a look at it, and then you can embed it in your code for, or alternatively, you can just type. And I've decided to hard code for this time round, for illustration purposes, the username to the email admin.abc.co.ke and the password to 6 characters. Of course, I've just typed digits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because already there is built-in validation. So if it's successful, then it displays a message on a toast. A toast is equivalent of a pop-up window. What you call, yeah, I can call it a pop-up. And then you have the I call the road registration. I load the registration class or the registration window. This is a method that is user defined. It's down there. We're going to see. Otherwise, it displays an error message that is, sorry, wrong credentials. Of course, that's hard coded. It's as you have coded that. So load registration is called, and this object V, this object here, the view, is passed now to the load registration method, and an intent object is created here, so that it receives both the current and the object that is being created, and the class whose object is going to be created in the intent. So the activity to be started is specified, which is now going to be from registration object, and the activity that is going to be finished is specified, which is the current one, which is the login activity.java or login activity, which is this dot finish. So that way we start the new activity and do away with the existing activity. In other words, we load now from registration. How does that work? Now, I had illustrated to you the purposes of this tool in the previous lab. Therefore, I just click on this one. You may have connected your phone. You can run on both. In this case, I'm using the emulator. I have the option to use the phone, but I've not connected one now. So I click on run, and of course, the emulator is going to come up. It's taking time. If there is no error, yeah, there happens to be no error, it will display the app, as you can see. Let's see. Let's give it time. This is great. So event registration. Now you can see this is the first activity. Then I can do the AB. What did you call it? Admin at abc.co.ke, and then I also can do 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5 6. Once I click on sign in, of course it doesn't necessarily because there is no error, and then I can fill the other details. I can click on clear, or this, of course, this is a default text, and I can leave this default text to guide the user, of course. Then once I'm done, of course, I can click on this. So this is the essence of lab 2. Well, in the meantime, that is it. I would like you also, before I exit from this lab, this video, to show you something that is important for purposes of debugging. You have done Java, and therefore this should not be very new to you, but allow me to just quickly go through it. That the structure of a Java application basically, or program, starts with the package statement, if there is any package you're importing from, the import statement, of course, if there are classes you're importing which you're going to be using in that app. There are many of them that are imported into this particular package. If you want to see them, I just click on this, and then you can see all the classes. Each view actually is called from a certain class. So and of course we have the app activity and the others. Of course, as you can see them, you can read through. Every time these have been added automatically from registration R and so on. If we scroll down further, of course, you can click on the class button here. You understand the import statement. We have the class login activity. You understand this, how classes are defined. Extends means it is importing from this class app activity, app compact activity. So that login activity is a subclass of app compact activity. And of course, you can see that within it, we override some of the methods that are defined, that are defined within the inherited class. Whenever you use the word super, it means we are overriding a method that is created, an instance method, a method that is defined within the superclass, within the constructor in the superclass. That's why you use the word super to specify that. The other thing you note, of course, is that we also have, aside from methods, also we have various variables, and the usual logic they implement it. We have listener classes, and they have that we are making use of. And all this is something you could have learned from Java. Generally speaking, in Java, you'll have packages, you'll have classes, you'll have inheritance. Of course, classes inherit from one another. You'll have implementation of, quite often you'll have implementation of, I was looking for that, interfaces, and you'll also have methods, and you'll also have variables. I want to mention that classes and methods and variables will have modifiers, and these modifiers are called access modifiers. We'll have private, public, protected. The default one, you have keywords like final, super, and static. So when you say something is private, it means it's only accessible within that class. You don't declare a class as private, but methods and variables can be declared as private. Public, it has universal access. And of course, we have protected, which has means the inheritors. Those classes that have inherited can make changes, but others cannot. We have default, which means within the same package. That means if you leave it without specifying, then it's accessible within the same package. We have final, which is a keyword which is used here, is what you use to declare constants. It means that this edit text, username edit text, is actually a constant, so to say. Then super means you have seen, I've just explained that super is used to access whatever variables or or methods that could be declared within the constructor function, which is a special function for instantiating the object. Then static, I guess we have not seen static yet, but whenever you see the word static, it refers to the variable or method. It means the variable or method is associated with the class as opposed to being associated with the object. That is important, so that even as you see, that information should help you and should make it easy for you to debug in case the program throws an error. And that should bring us to the end of lab 2. In case anybody has a question, then of course you can follow up with me outside in class, or you can just use the LMS to post the question, or whichever other means you have. Thank you.